Namaste and greetings. I, Mahima Kapoor, researcher at IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, Prabhav एवं नीति अनुसंधान संस्थान, Nai Delhi, extend a warm welcome to you all to the IMPRI hashtag by Policy Talk. Today, we are gathered for a special talk on the blue economy, port-based development, and expanding India's foreign trade as part of the series, The State of Foreign Trade, hashtag Talking Trade. This discussion is being organized by the IMPRI Center for the Study of Finance and Economics and delivered by Professor Mukul Ashar. We are honored to have Professor Mukul Ashar as the speaker, Dr. Nalin Bharti as the moderator, and Professor Prabir De as the discussant for the session. We welcome you. I feel privileged to introduce the moderator for the session, Dr. Nalin Bharti. Sir is the Associate Professor, Humanities and Social Sciences at the Indian Institute of Technology, Patna. Now, I invite Dr. Bharti to take the proceedings further, and we look forward to learning from our esteemed gathering. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Let me first introduce our speaker, Professor Mukulji Asar. Obtained his PhD in economics from Washington State University in 1972. He was a faculty member with the Department of Economics and later with the Kuan School of Public Policy at National University of Singapore for over 4 decades and stepping down in June 2018. He has been a visiting faculty at the Asian Public Policy Program at the Hitotsubashi University in Tokyo since early 2000, and he is associated with several Indian think tanks such as the Research and Information System for Developing Country, RIS in New Delhi, where he is a senior adjunct fellow. He is on editorial board of several journals, including IIMB Management Review. His research focuses on public financial management, pension reforms, and on expanding India's geo-economic and geo-strategic space. He has published extensively in national and international journals and has authored or edited more than 16 books, including an e-book on economic reasoning and public policies, case studies from India. He has been a consultant or advisor to several governments in Asia and to multilateral organizations and think tanks. Let me also introduce our discussant for this event, Professor Prabir De. Professor De is professor at RIS. He is also the coordinator of Asian India Center at RIS. De works in the field of international economics and has research interest in international trade and development. He was a visiting fellow of Asian Development Bank Institute, Tokyo, and visiting senior fellow of United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific, Bangkok. He has been conducting policy research for the government of India and several international organizations. He has a PhD in economics from the Jadavpur University, Kolkata. He has contributed several research papers in international journals and written books on trade and development. He is the editor of the South Asian Economic Journal published by SAGE. Before I will invite Professor Mukul Asar, I would like to just briefly introduce the topic today. The blue economy is an emerging concept which is basically encouraging us for the better utilization of our ocean or blue resources. Similar to the green economy, this particular blue economic model also aims for the improvement of the human well-being and the social equity while significantly reducing environmental risk and ecological scarcities. With an over 7,500 kilometer long coastline spread across 9 coastal states, 12 major and 200 minor ports, India's blue economy supports 95% of country's business through transportation, and it also contributes an estimated 4% of its gross domestic product. Professor Asar is going to discuss in detail about the Sagarmala project. So this project launched by the Ministry of Shipping is the strategic initiative for the port-led development through the extensive use of the IT-enabled services for modernization of ports. It tackles the issue of underutilized ports by focusing on port modernization, efficient evacuation, and coastal economic development. Considering these facts, we now understand that the particular topic which is being discussed today is very important for a country like India, which has lots of opportunity to grow in future. And at the same time, in terms of trade also, India's trade in the global trade is not up to the mark. It has to increase because we contribute a large population, but in terms of trade, our contribution to the global trade is very less. So considering these points, now may I invite Professor Mukul Asar for his presentation. Professor Asar.
Thank you, Professor Nalin Bharti, for your kind introduction and for laying the foundation for the topic for today. I'm also grateful to IMPRI, the director at IMPRI, for considering me for delivering this session. There are three words that we need to link. One is the blue economy. So Professor Bharti has already indicated what blue economy is. We need to elaborate a little bit and define that. Then the port-based development is also related to the coastal areas. If we look at the world, coastal areas are among the more prosperous areas in any country, and the port-based will permit or make it feasible for coastal areas to grow as well. And link these two with foreign trade. Okay, so this is a huge topic. I have many slides for more complete references for the researchers, particularly. I may not go over all the slides, but these linkages, how we pursue them is going to be critical to expand India's share in global economic, not just trade in goods and services, but in global linkages and economic and strategic space. Let me just give the synopsis because the slides are big. We should get the gist of it first. This figure shows the, we all know that Earth is mostly water, but this figure really brings it out, how important the water is on the Earth's surface. And then the we have only various countries making up 1/3 of the planet's surface, and more than 47% or 43% is water. And the 43% of Earth's surface falls under international waters, requiring law of the sea treaty, which we have done, but we don't have so many experts that we need on that. Territorial waters, where states have special rights, make up 27% of the Earth's surface, and Antarctica occupies 2.7%. All the world's countries make up less than 1/3. So if we look at since independence, we never used the word blue economy until very recently, until the Sagarmala and joining it with Bharatmala, Udan, and the railways came along. Udan is the airspace. It is therefore essential to utilize water endowments productively and sustainably, because if the oceans are polluted, that affects India quite a bit as well. And we have not focused so far on the blue economy. And we first explained the recent blue economy initiatives, Sagarmala, and using inland waterways. In the earlier times, we had in some states excellent inland waterways that made up our trade channels and commercial and passenger channels. But we are developing inland waterways. The more famous of that is the Namami Ganga project that has received a lot of priority. So we use that to enhance connectivity and to create new economic activities and growth modes. It argues that India's blue economy initiatives should be viewed in conjunction with its Bharatmala program, designed to vastly enhance road connectivity in the country, including with existing and new ports that the roads are being connected, so the logistic cost of international trade gets reduced. With rail connectivity, particularly Northeast, elsewhere, we are using the rail connectivity too. And the air connectivity program called UDAN, which is complementarities among them must be tapped to realize the full potential of port development and coastal communities. We then examine implications of the above programs for accelerating India's external trade basket, and some select examples are given. This interrelationship needs to be studied much more intensively. As I was preparing for this talk, I realized how little research on these areas, published research that exist by think tanks or academics. So our discussions, however, still remains broad, but hopefully it's a platform that will encourage researchers and scholars to do more rigorous research, and hopefully those who supervise PhD students and graduate students will set up the topics in this area. Now, when we talk about the blue economy, we need to be mindful, where are the world's key maritime choke points? And of course, for us, the Straits of Malacca is among the most important, is Asia's primary choke point, accounting for 25% of all traded goods, third of all seaborne. More than 40% of our trade passes through Straits of Malacca. And this is where we need to pay a lot of attention to. Cape of Good Hope and others. There are primary, there are secondary choke points as well. Now, how India has got very large trade, $1.2 trillion international trade in goods and services. But in the shipping hubs, we are still evolving. We are not in the top 10, even in 2019. And the shipping hubs don't change so much. 2005, Singapore, Hong Kong. In 2019, Shanghai, Singapore, and a lot of Chinese ports have come up. Korean port and Rotterdam. Okay, so what we need to do, what was Los Angeles, Dubai, Hamburg, European and American ports in 2005 are not in the top in 2019. So one of our ambitions should be that we should come to be ranked within at least the top 20, if not top 10. Okay. These are India's external economic zone and the continental shelf. Prime Minister explained the blue economy. To me, the blue chakra or wheel in India's national flag represents the potential of blue revolution or the ocean economy. That is how central the ocean economy is to us. So this is where the journey that we have embarked on. Professor Bharti mentioned that blue economy refers to utilization of a country's coastline, inland waterways, sea connectivity globally for more sustainable and broad-based economic development. There is no standard definition of the scope of the blue economy. Professor Bharti gave some data, but some countries, for example, include tourism in the blue economy. So countries like Thailand will have a large blue economy because they have a large tourism sector. And we'll see that Government of India has set up a task force to try to define what should go in our blue economy, because we know what gets measured get done. And we can then review the progress as we go along if we set up a good conceptual definition and good record keeping system. The focus is on ports development, which is the Sagarmala. Bharatmala is the road connectivity, rail modernization, major airports we have, Navi Mumbai in Maharashtra, Jawar in UP, regional air connectivity, Udan, and so on. So we need to put it together as a transport. Indeed, a lot of people have argued that we should actually have a transport ministry. There is no need for a separate ministry for different modes of road transport and others. But that is part of the political economy, not as easy to tackle. It's a lower order priority in reform to have a mega transport ministry. That may come with time. India ranks 4th in the global ranking of air connectivity, and new airports and Udan aim to improve this further. Also, the northeast and north-south and east-west corridors that was started by Prime Minister Bajpayee when he was Prime Minister between 1998 2004. And you can see that this is something that now is beginning to look as if India has got connectivity north-south, east-west. This is Bharatmala. This is even more thicker because not everything is in the national program. There are a lot of states and others. So this Bharatmala program will, when it is completed, will make our connectivity far more than what it was before. As I had mentioned, Northeast Economic Corridor is key. It is connectivity to state capitals and key towns. Northeast, we have to develop as a new growth node. And that new growth node is one of the ways we will reach $5 trillion economy. There is multimodal freight movement from via 7 waterway terminals on river Brahmaputra in the Northeast. So that connectivity is being enhanced. There's a coastal and port connectivity routes, enabling port-led economic development. 2,836 km National Highways Plan, 2,000 km highways to be developed in phase 1 with a budget outlay of 20,000 crores. Now notice what is being planned is the improved geometry that we are seeing enables high-speed connectivity, average of 80 to 100 kilometers per hour. This is about what you can drive. I mean, I lived in America for 12 years. We drove enough. 100 kilometers per hour would be just fine in an American highway system. So if we can achieve that, that will be considerable achievement for us. Greenfield corridors, 22, to connect 750 plus economic and industrial nodes. This is what we were lacking before, where we had many states, there was only one type of economic corridor, like in Karnataka, Bangalore, Mysore, and nothing much else. So now we'll have more and more corridors. They will be connected with each other within the state and outside the state. Multimodal, so rail, waterways, and air logistics terminals in National Multimodal Logistics Master Plan. We never had a logistics master plan before, but logistic costs in India are about twice the world average, which I'll show we need to bring it down. Safer freight and passenger movement. You know, how many accidents, others, all that work requires investment and expertise. Additional 8,500 kilometers of greenfield, new economic corridors and expressways. So good connectivity. We have connection of economically important production and consumption centers. So you get agglomeration economies, as urban economists would say. And you need then, you also get diffusion of talent. Not all talent has to go to 4 metros and now second tier, third tier, others. That depth of talent will help in local development as well. There are 25,000 kilometers of highways, 9,000 kilometers of national highways, and 120,000 crore of budget. So these are the greenfield corridors will cost 3.3 lakh crores. And these are under construction, 2.3, awarded but not appointed, under bidding, and this is the project report stage 2715. So we are moving fairly rapidly to try to create that connectivity. As of mid-2021, Indian Railway, we shouldn't forget railways, out of 64,689 km of railway track in India, 71% were electrified. And the others are going to be electrified by 2023. That will be a big, big achievement. Saving in fuel will be very, very important. And railways want to be carbon neutral as well. So railways are undertaking some really path-breaking reforms, including preparing accrual-based accounting methods, not cash-based as other government areas have. What are the areas of operation? 6 areas. Harvesting of living resources, extraction of non-living resources, and we haven't tapped thermal energy, others, and so on from the sea that we need to do. Generation of new resources, trade and commerce, ensuring health of resources. Establishing newer routes of trade and commerce through oceans, inland waterways, multimodal transport, increases connectivity, and the potential for such connectivity was underutilized before. BIMSTEC initiative has included blue economy in its workplace. The other geostrategic area, geoeconomic and geostrategic concept that is relevant is the Indo-Pacific region. Now, usually we have been talking about Asia-Pacific. Now, Asia-Pacific leaves out Indian Ocean. And so we now have the Indo-Pacific region. It links countries in the Indian Ocean with the Pacific Ocean to form a region. So we have Indo-Pacific incorporates both oceans, and that is increasingly preferred. Quad, US, Japan, Australia, India have adopted it officially. France has used this concept. Germany is coming around to it. So as far as our, when we set up, this is the Indo-Pacific region. When we set up the thesis topics and research topics in research institution, we should be becoming expert on the Indo-Pacific region, because the Asia-Pacific region excluded us. APEC, for example, Asia-Pacific Economic Organization, when we wanted to become a member, Prime Minister Rao once mentioned, I do not knock on closed doors, referring to our wanting to be a member of APEC, but the APEC being reluctant. So we are, through Indo-Pacific, we are now creating this new concept, which is very critical for our geo-economic, geostrategic objectives, and our academics and researchers should recognize it. India has advanced its initiative at the East Asia Summit as well. It centers on 7 pillars of maritime security, maritime ecology, maritime resources, capacity building and resource sharing, disaster risk reduction and management, science, technology, and academic cooperation, and trade connectivity, and maritime transport. So the connection of the above with India's blue economy and coastal economic zone is very relevant. I also urge you to look at the Journal of Indo-Pacific Affairs. It's by a military organization, AIR University of USA, and our Indian researcher should have a reasonable presence in the output of this particular journal. Now, the blue economy, the way it is conceived in a very integrated way. So they have identified 7 priority areas. Working groups were set up, reports are done, and it is being monitored closely. One is the National Accounting Framework for Blue Economy and Ocean Governance Priority. So we are giving emphasis on how to measure blue economy, coastal marine spatial planning and tourism priority. That's the second priority area. Marine fisheries, aquaculture, fish processing. And we are going a huge way in the fishing schemes that have been set up. Manufacturing, emerging industries, trade, technology, services, skill development. Logistics, infrastructure, and shipping, including transshipment. We do very little transshipment, and our port should be developed more and more, that instead of the global cargo going to Colombo and then coming to us, it should be coming to the Indian ports and going to the neighboring countries. Coastal and deep sea mining and offshore energy. These are going to be critical. Security strategic dimensions and international. These are the working groups, national accounting and so on. I've given you all the links. They've got all the reports. We are also using technology for the blue economy. The Indian government has initiated OSMART program under the Ministry of Earth Sciences, budget of 16.2 billion INR. It will provide scientific and technological inputs for various aspects of the blue economy. The inputs include information about fish potential and local weather conditions. It's very important, the local weather conditions. Brazil, for example, is an agricultural power in the world. But it has, all its agriculture is non-irrigated. But it has got local weather conditions every 15, 20 kilometers. So they know exactly when to harvest, when to do what, when to plant, when, how to do that, because the local weather condition, all India weather condition, okay, is fine, but it is not useful to a farmer in a particular district. What should I do? They need that district level information and advice. So this program would also assist in seaweed cultivation and mangrove growth, because those have got huge potential. Sagarmala was initiated in 2015, 580 projects. So it's a project-based. Estimated cost of 124 billion USD. They have been identified and to be implemented over 20 years. So it's 15 to 35. It's a long gestation, long project. Projects worth 135 billion INR have been completed by July 2018. That's very small proportion, but the progress is accelerating. Sagarmala Development Company has been set up to identify port-led development projects, providing equity support for the special purpose vehicles. And given the large number of projects, proficiency in structuring, in selecting appropriate financing mix, and in implementing the projects would be crucial. Each project should consider constituting a strong project management office, PMO, with requisite skill sets and authority for successful completion of the project and the handover. I don't have time to go over project management, but that is a specialized skill. And in our government and in general in the bureaucracy, project management is not recognized as a professional skill. I would urge the research institutes, universities to subsidize their staff getting diploma in project management from Project Management International based in Delhi. They provide certificate diploma programs, and that's very, very useful now that we are undertaking such huge number of projects. As I was mentioning, the CLSA in 2016 estimated that the logistic cost in India are 14 to 17%, and Sagarmala will bring it down to 6 to 8% in line with globally competitive. And so if you go more cargo via sea and river routes to a global average of about 40% as compared to 5% around 2015, we can save a lot of cost. And that is something that is being envisaged. So with 2025, with Sagarmala initiative, the share of roads will go down from 54 to 46, and the share in container traffic increased to 25% from 18% in base case. And we have rail will increase slightly, coastal will double. This is where huge opportunities in coastal and inland waterways, the Namami Gange project and others, and the pipelines will remain about the same. But main thing is the road. Everything is choked up on the road, and we will now using blue economy means we use coastal and inland waterways. We double their share from within 10 years. 6 to 8 potential new ports based on 3 themes: port saturation, unavailability of ports, and strategic ports to capture international opportunities. So it's all part of India's international integration with the world. So these are some of the new ports that are being planned. Notice the proposed coastal economic zone. So far, we haven't had much coastal development. Those that we do identify with coast like Mumbai or Cochin or Chennai, they are relatively prosperous, but they are very few. Kolkata, Haldia is still relatively prosperous in the Northeast, but because of bad governance for over half a century, they have not realized their potential. One hopes that they do. And so we got now all these, you can see that these are zones. So surrounding, there will be a lot of opportunities. And if you see Mundra, Kandla is one of the oldest ports. Mundra today has a larger share of the traffic than JNPT, even though JNPT was set up much earlier and so on. But many public, private, mixed ports, they are all increasing. And the port development and the coastal economic zone is what we are trying to do. Port connectivity enhancement, port-linked industrialization, and recycling of ships. So 2019 bill was passed, and it aims to grow the industry share globally from 30 to 60% in recycling of ships. That's a huge opportunity, but it is also environmentally, we have to be very sensitive about it. There are some of the labor safety issues and others, and it can generate revenue of 2.2 billion USD while meeting the international standards and so on. So India aims to be compliant with international rules. Promoting sustainable development of coastal communities through skill development and livelihood generation activities, fisheries development, coastal tourism. 65 projects are being planned. Initial funding for Sagarmala has been from the budget and the public sector, but significant crowding in of private sector investment of both domestic and foreign are being anticipated. So if you see Dahej, it doesn't show Dahej here, but here it is, Dahej. If you see this area, there is a huge investments that are going on. Many by Japanese. There is a Dolera investment region. There is SIR region, and so on. So we will see this coastal, once you have a lot of industries coming up here, you can easily get to any of the ports. You can go to Mumbai, but you can also go to Pipavav or Mundra or Sikka or Kandla or small one, Dahej and Hazira port as well. So that is, and similarly, one hopes it happens in the south and the east. And the east will particularly benefit, like Andhra, doesn't have much breadth of locations where economic activity is intense. So now with Vizag and Kakinda and so on, we'll have more of that activity coming in. So India is also planning infrastructure plans in Andaman and Nicobar of our island as part of the blue economy. So we are planning transshipment center terminal at Campbell Bay and so on. Chennai, Andaman, Nicobar Island submarine cable project is being done with a view to enhancing air connectivity. Infrastructure for civil flights is increasing, and the solar plant for energy security is coming in. India is also participating in port development abroad. So Chabar port in Iran right now, because of what's going on in Afghanistan, we have to wait and see how its linkage with Afghanistan will work out. But India-Iran is very significant and for our economic and diplomacy in the Central Asia. We also have port initiatives in Myanmar, another very strategically critical country for us. And we assumed responsibilities for operation as Sitawi port in 2019. India-Bangladesh port initiatives are there, and a lot of trade is going on there as well. Same thing with India-Maldives. Now there is a ferry service between India and Maldives as well. India-Indonesia. Indonesia is a key Indo-Pacific country, and they are jointly developing maritime cooperation, and they have signed agreements for that. I've already mentioned the Inland Waterways Authority of India. They plan a substantial development of multimodal RoRo facilities, ferry services, navigation aids, and so on. And the multimodal terminal will be Varanasi, Sahibganj, and Haldia. So there are a lot of activities already taking place. One example, Chennai port has also been shipping cars in RoRo vessels to Pipavav port in the state of Gujarat, saving time and consumption. Instead of going by road, go by sea, not much traffic, you can go faster. I won't give you too many examples in here. You can really read that. Namami Gange project is now well known with a lot of attention, and there are ferry services in Ganga. There are now Ganga water is very clear near Kashi, Varanasi, and Prayagraj. And we are going to see more and more connectivity improving livelihoods of people in the Gangetic Basin. We saw that's where the demographic weight is. Now let's look at the foreign trade. So we have given you some overview of the blue economy, Sagarmala, along with Bharatmala and others. We saw the linkages. You can't do Sagarmala without Bharatmala, and without Udan, and without railways contributing, and the inland waterways contributing. These are all interconnected, integrated transport corridors. Now let's look at some numbers first. We leave out intra-EU trade. Total global merchandise exports were 15.45 billion, 15,462 billion USD. India was 2019, share was only 2.1%, ranked 13. In imports, we were ranked 8. Merchandise trade deficit was 160 billion, but in trade in services, we ranked 5th, share of 4.3% in exports, and 7th in imports with share of 3.8%. And we had a $36 billion surplus in services. So our role should be to sustainably reduce our merchandise trade deficit, increase our services deficit, and the blue economy will help in both of them. We are increasingly setting up, notice though that the total trade X plus M in merchandise and services was 1,200 billion USD. The figures that I see for 2021 so far suggest that we will exceed 1,200 billion this year. So we are not small in terms of our international trade, and we shouldn't sort of mentally think that, oh, it's small, we don't need to pay attention. We need to, and we need to. We have increasingly ambitious targets, USD 4 billion for 21-22 in merchandise exports alone, 500 for 22-23, and 1,000 billion over next 5 years or so. So that is really a very, very ambitious set of targets that we need to work on. Now, let's look at the sectoral export. One is the agriculture exports. In 2019, agriculture exports were 37 billion, and in share in import was 5.5%. We had a modest surplus of 10.3 billion. But this is where, if India wants to increase its soft power and become more and more relevant to the world, India must become an agricultural. India already is in the top 10 for the first time in the agricultural exports with 3.1% share. But we need to go much, much more than that. Top rice exporters in 2019 were India, 33%. Distant is Thailand, 20%, and Vietnam, 12%. So now we need to work on rice exports. We can work on the other agricultural exports. We are the third largest cotton exporter. But in the largest traded agri products, soybeans, we have a meager share. And that's where hopefully these Sagarmala and so on can help. In meat and edible meat offal category, we ranked 8th in the world with 4% share. Another area where we can grow our share. But India lost its share in wheat and muslin, and we don't figure in the top 10 anywhere. In agricultural imports, we all know the main items are cooking oil, and we are using blue economy to reduce our dependence on the imported cooking oil. It should be noted that top agricultural exporting countries have processed agriculture item as the key source of exports. So this is an area where the blue economy, by encouraging food processing near ports and coastal areas, can help India move up the global ranking. So you process frozen vegetables, fruit. India is a huge producer of horticulture, 340 million tons. And if we process it, we can move to increase our agricultural export. There are some plans by the Ministry of Food Processing Industries. We are also diversifying our export basket. Just one example, jackfruit and lemons have been exported from Tripura, Northeast, to Germany. And the state produces around 1.33 lakh tons of jackfruit a year. And now this Tripura, Assam, Nagaland, Meghalaya jackfruit is now going to Europe, and some of it is going via Bangladesh ports and airports. So from there you go to Bangladesh and fly it out logistically. That is better. The dragon fruit has been for the first time exported from Gujarat to London. So again, the coastal areas can help, and from West Bengal to Bahrain. So that's where the connectivity is going to be important. The manufacturing is where we hope we can increase our share. In services trade, it is in the transport area that our ports and our airlines are not carrying enough of India's trade. So modernization of ports, developing transshipment points, increasing the scale so we can have more efficient equipment, corporatizing our ports, private sector participation, and promotion of flagging of merchant ships in India for the Indian shipping. All of those can help. Same thing with travel. We have we don't have enough of the incoming foreign tourists for our size and our amenities. So this is where we are developing now Statue of Unity, now Somnath Temple, Ram Temple in Ayodhya, elsewhere, more and more iconic tourist the sites are being developed. Financial services is where we are a net importer, and GIFT, Gujarat International Financial Tech City, is something that we need to work on more. By the way, a disclosure, I'm an advisor to the International Financial Services Centers Authority, whose role is to develop our GIFT and other financial tech cities around the country. GIFT is one right now, but more will be hopefully coming up, and to develop the fintech sector as well. So this has just been set up, and I'm part of the advisory group. Okay. We have also been working on reducing trade, improving our trade facilitation. And this is some surveys in which India has done well. We are developing seaweed as a new crop, agri startup, financial services initiatives, RuPay and UPI, getting international, transaction network services, expanding its presence in India, and with the India International Exchange, linkages will be another way to reduce financial imports. We have set up or we have allowed new development bank in GIFT City. So again, improving our financial services. A lot of our money goes in arbitration, maritime arbitration. So India has set up the Maritime Arbitration Center in GIFT City, and hopefully that will reduce the imports as well. We need to broaden our FDI though. Our cumulative share of FDI till March 2021, Gujarat 30%, Maharashtra 28%, Karnataka 14%, Delhi 11%, Tamil Nadu 4%, and UP 1%. So we can't, it's too few and too concentrated few areas. So hopefully the blue economy, the connectivity, Bharatmala, all of these will help in expanding the FDI, reduce concentration, and improve the FDI flows, both as well as the portfolio flows. So as this shows, India has showed improvement in trade facilitation. We also, by the way, it is not well known that cumulative amount of FDI inflows up to March 21 were 763 billion USD. We'll reach USD 1 trillion very soon. And actually, we have capacity to double that. we also have an outbound FDI. So the outbound FDI is increasing as well because we need connections in the other countries for our greater integration with the global economy and for our exports. Okay, so let me just make some concluding remark. I hope you can see how blue economy, Sagarmala related, can be used to create policies, initiatives that will improve our trade. India is making a concerted and systemic effort to use its blue economy initiatives and relative connectivity initiatives to create new avenues of economic activities and new growth nodes. You know, a lot of potential comes when you have more and more growth, the activity is spread around the state. It is also using this initiative to expand its international trade to new products, new geographies, using additional logistics supply chains to help realize its ambitious goals. The indications are that India is likely to meet its export target of USD 4 billion, the merchandise export, in 21-22. Vivek de Broy has made a persuasive case for reforming institutions to achieve India's goals. He argues when agendas are drawn up for reform, typically by economists, the institutional setting is often ignored. I have in mind the other two, other than executive organs of the state mentioned in the Constitution, the legislature and the judiciary. If these two don't function efficiently, any economist-driven reform agenda will perforce be constrained. Yet, these rarely figure any reform discourse. And these projects, they are coastal developments, other, in 2020, 21, the state legislatures on the average met for 18 days. How can we have such low productivity and accountability of state governments? So, and the judiciary, we all know how urgently the reform is needed. There needs to be timely and relevant data. So my model is the Jal Jeevan Yojana. If you go to their dashboard, it's so detailed and so wonderful to do research. And I'm surprised I don't get more PhD theses on Jal Jeevan Yojana and so on to examine. There's a treasure house of information there for thesis and research. But we need better dashboards, better information on Sagarmala, Bharatmala, and Udan. I got a lot of this information by searching the newspapers, others, sometimes going on Twitter, and so on. So researchers and postgraduate students are strongly urged to undertake data-intensive, policy-relevant research on different aspects of the blue economy and explore linkages with India's international trade. Thank you very much for your patience, and I appreciate your kind opportunity. Namaskar.
Thank you very much, Professor Asar, for your extensive discussion on the blue economy, its importance, and its linkage with the international trade. It was really thought-provoking and very much influencing the young mind to think again that how they can do the future research in this particular area. So before taking up some of the questions, let me also invite Professor Praveer Dey for his remarks and comments and observations.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bharti, and I congratulate Professor Asar for his extensive presentation. He has covered a wide spectrum on the subject. If I may be the education minister of this country, just hypothetically, I would request Professor Asar to write convert this PowerPoint into a book, it could easily go as a term paper, where to those who are studying MPhil PhD in international trade, international economics, international relations. So richful, this presentation he has covered. One side, it is international trade. I see this, he has a slides on foreign trade. At the same time, linking it with very, very micro, very narrow details like, port development, connective coastal zone development. He spoke about some of the ports, which is a non-major port, which used to call a minor port in the Gujarat state, Japanese investment. So, and he also talked about trade investment, empirical evidences in India, and overall, it is the blue economy. This is very correctly 1/3 of the global space is on the water. So it's so important, and I can see his mind that that this subject was overlooked previously, and it is very important now in India. And I see some of the countries in the IOR, and I was told that they have the blue economy ministry in some of the, so that's what's importance some of the countries they have taken up in the port-based development, and its implications for the international trade, as Professor Asar has presented in his extensive presentations. I have some, as I've seen, I'm highly motivated by his presentation, because he is ending. He has a very strong introduction as ending as a great professor with footnotes as well as the bibliography and concluding remarks. Normally we don't do that. So this is where the completeness of this presentation of the subject, which he elaborated in his 45 minutes presentation. But I may add some of the points, because I look at international trade integrations, regional cooperation and integration in particular from this part of the world, and whatever India has been doing in terms of connectivity with the neighborhood and within the country in terms of development of infrastructure, connecting one part of India with another part, with Bharatmala, Sagarmala, projects like Uran, and so on and so forth. There are so many things are going, in the country. And this is the first time I've seen for the last 5 years, the numbers indicates it is almost the 10%, average 10% of the national GDP is going into infrastructure development. That's which is used to be 4 to 5%. And there was a great paper by in my organization by Professor Ram Gopal Agarwala, which Professor Mukul sir knows very well. So he was playing with this number that if the GDP in contribution to the infrastructure development goes for 10%, then this will have very strong non-linear impact on the development. That's what I think so many things are, Professor Asar has presented. So let me see some of the points from my side, that where, some more can be added, or somewhere, Professor Asar may consider to restructure or recast some of the focus of in some part of his presentation. Everything I will look at it more in terms of cost, in terms of trade, because how this infrastructure development, which he is alluded to, this road, highway, railways, inland waterways, even he spoke that how much they are going to reduce our cost of transportation and improve the timeliness. This is what we have to add. Professor Asar has added that at the end when he talked about trade facilitation, but I would request him that if he can bring that element, that cost and time, and it is possible without doing any kind of an econometric modeling. It is possible with some new numbers that's available in several public domain. Just to add it here, the cost and time, and Professor Asar may consider that in our land border, there is a phenomenal progress has been done by this government, and the project was initiated by the previous government before 2014. The project is so useful that normally, in a democratic setup, what was done by the previous government, the government next, they don't follow it. Sometime, they leave aside, they take their own projects ahead. But this case, it just didn't happen. What is that project? When you talk about timeliness, development of the border connectivity, it is the Land Port Authority of India, LPAI. It's under the Ministry of Home Affairs. What LPAI does, they manages all our entry and exit point, which used to be known P2012 called LCS, Land Customs Station. Now they are known as Integrated Checkpost, ICP. So if you go to Atari, which is handling our cargo with Afghanistan and Pakistan, or if you come to More, which is handling our cargo with Myanmar and ASEAN countries, or a Petrapol, or maybe at Roxol. So these are the places, where you will see that these infrastructure was actually heavily developed and put in under one roof. Previous cases, it is our land port. It's not like an airport. When you land into a seaport or an airport, you will get everything near to you, kind of a single window. But when you go to the land side, because of our colonial structure, the immigration is one place, warehouse is another place, your entry point is another place, the exit gate is another place. Everything is scattered. Now this has changed. Everything now put in one place. So you enter from one point, exit from other side. So this is done by Land Port Authority of India under the Ministry of Home Affairs, and presently 7 ICPs at a different location of the Indian land post, land border. They are under operations. 2012, these LPAI, in short, they were introduced by an act in the Parliament 2010. Next year they will be celebrating 10 years. So this part maybe you would like to add, that our land border and how they have changed. As you can understand that India's trade in the neighborhood, it's basically rooted through, if you leave aside Maldives or Sri Lanka, by land. So this is very important. And I can share some of the statistics that I have, with the LPAI, how many cargo it handles, how much trade it handles. And it's a matter of fact, over time, this trade through the ICPs has actually increased heavily from less than 30% of India's trade in the neighborhood to more than 63%. So this is one point when it comes to cost and time is concerned. Now, the one which I think, I also have to mention here, if you look at a Google map, India in Google map and Google Earth, and if you zoom in, then you will see that eastern part of India is actually, they're quite fortunate to have a deep drafted, the coastline than the western side. I was told by some maritime experts in ASEAN that ASEAN, Southeast Asia's beautiful beaches are in the east coast than in the west side. Malaysia, Thailand, those are great examples. Why it is in the east, why not in the west? I was told western side, there are a lot of resources that have been exploited like oil, gas. That is why the beaches are polluted. Eastern side is not that. So you will get beautiful seasides in the eastern. That's sort of explanation I've given, but it needs something more. So what I'm trying to tell you that east coast of India, there are ample opportunities for development, which is not happening at the moment. All going to focus on the western side because of the clustering industries, FDI in the Gujarat, in the Maharashtra. But eastern side, which is much closer to the Bay of Bengal. You are in Singapore, you have so many students you have trained. And so maybe this part in the east coast of India, East Asia, and many parts, the rest of the world, you may like to add here, how we develop east coast of India. Relatively speaking, these are the important, which will bring to our states, the provinces which are relatively declining compared to the western side. If you look at the state-wise distribution of the regional economies, western economies and Delhi clusters, they are growing much faster than the eastern, northeastern side. So probably the port-based development might need, this kind of a rethinking if you'd like to give additional thrust to our states, which are in the east and northeastern side. Last point from my side is that there is a huge cost India has been playing. I'm not arguing is it good or bad, going to Singapore and going to Colombo for transshipment. This is an issue. Some of those are nationalists. They say, why should we go to Colombo and Singapore? Why not we do the transshipment by ourselves? But the fact that we don't have deep drafted port, and the mainline shipping channels from east to west and west to east, they are a bit far away. And the facilities, the environment that Sri Lanka and Singapore offer to the shipping liners, which we cannot. And they don't have cabotage, they have a very relaxed environment. So here, maybe when you talk about port-based development and its international trade, can you suggest something that how do you have this regional maritime cooperation between Indian ports and the ports transshipment, like in Singapore or in Colombo or Port Klang in Malaysia or somewhere in the South Asia, because these is India or Southeast Asia maritime cooperation is very important. And if you recall that our Honorable Prime Minister spoke at UNSC just a few days back, and his speech, his great speech, which is delivered at UNSC, it is all about maritime connectivity, maritime cooperation, maritime security, maritime safety, which is very much integrated, to your presentation. So this one, I would request you to bring some recommendations that how long China must have been stopped investing in the port sector. You have a slide, the 2005 to 2019, and the rank of the world ports. It is no more the European. It is the Asian ports are coming in the top, insofar the country line is concerned. It is no more Singapore, it is a Chinese port. But China investing to port, seaport, not much. So where is China investing? That's what somebody explained to me. China is investing more into the airport. Why? Because China will be exporting more and more capital-intensive goods. China will be exporting more high-value, low-weight goods than India and Southeast Asia or African countries. Our export compositions, when you said about diversification, very right. Our export composition is low-value, high-weight, the things that we export. And this will transform when we start exporting capital-intensive goods as the way China is doing. So when it is high-value, low-weight, it is easy to ship it by air than ocean. So new ship order at Koreans, which is a post-Panamax, which is 50,000 plus container order has been declined, not just because of the COVID-led global slowdown. Even then, and there is a huge amount of activities going on by the Boeing and Airbus to have a bigger airlines, bigger aircraft to carry the cargo faster from one place to another place. This is what I think the interesting part. So India will be looking that as well, going to that direction. Perhaps you may like to add something, the trade-off between India's port-led international trade and development from ocean cargo to air cargo, port or seaport or airport. That's what I would like to have an answer in your paper. Otherwise, it is an excellent piece. We will be looking forward to your paper. When you convert this, we'll be happy to read it once again and come back to you with again to you. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Day. We are also having Dr. George Joan, former Vice Chancellor, Birsa Agriculture University, Ranchi, and former Senior Advisor and Scientist, Department of Biotechnology with us. So I would also like to invite him for his comments, if possible, if he can share some of the comments.
Thank you. Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Okay. It's been a pleasure to listen to Professor Mukul. I enjoyed the lecture It has been a very comprehensive thing. And as Professor Day said, we would like to have further inputs from you on this. Well, incidentally, he also mentioned the various working group reports for the Economic Advisory Council to the PM. Incidentally, I chaired the Working Group 3 report, which dealt with marine fisheries processing and related issues. Now, we had looked at the sector very carefully, and keeping in view the requirements of fish in the future, we said that up to 5 million metric tons can be produced through mariculture, provided there is proper planning, and you can use only a small segment of your ocean resources for that. Now that calls for an integrated approach, because there are multi-user issues, waterways, I mean, places where vessels move. There are again traditional fishers, traditional fishermen. All these issues can be taken into consideration in a holistic manner, but we do have a huge, huge potential out there, and India needs to move decisively in this direction. Associated with it also, you have the sanctity of the resources, for instance, pollution affecting plastic pollution. Now, nobody has really mapped these things, I feel that these are huge, huge problems. We really don't know what will happen in the next 10 years or 15 years. What could be the effect of plastics, microplastics? So that mapping has to be done in a very comprehensive manner. Quite often, when you look at production, you go in a one-track mind and say, produce all the fish that we need. But the fish is being produced at what cost? So these are ecological costs, economic costs, sociological costs. All these things have to be taken into consideration. Nevertheless, I would emphatically insist that we need to increase our production from the mariculture sector. So these are some of the directions some of the suggestions that we have made, and also exploiting the ocean resources for marine biotechnology application, the non-food sector of biological resources. I know Singapore has done a lot. Sir, you have been in Singapore. I have a friend of mine, Dr. Venkatesh, who was in the National University of Singapore, a marine biotechnology man. We were colleagues at one time in India, and he moved over to Singapore. So I was there a couple of years ago. I met him. So there are so many of these newer areas. For instance, you're looking at the non-living sector of the biological resources, enzymes. You can develop biologicals, you can develop nanotechnology, biomaterial based on marine biology, So there are a large number of options that are available. In fact, I have been personally pushing for an institute in India exclusively devoted for marine biotechnology applications. And I believe that the new project, the Deep Sea Mission, a major program approved by the Government of India, will have this component also as a separate institution coming up. So it's kind of a dream come true. I've been pursuing it for the last 15 years or so. Finally, it's taking some shape. But what I'm trying to say is that we need to do much more than what we are doing and make use of newer technologies to do this. So I'm happy that you have touched upon many of these things, sir. And I look forward to being able to contribute in whatever manner is possible. Thank you. Let me once again say that I really enjoyed your lecture, a very, very revealing, thought-provoking lecture. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. So, Professor Azhar, if you have any comment on some of the observations made by Professor Day and also by Professor John.
Thank you for the opportunity. The Professor Day has made some very valuable, insightful observations. I would request him to share the land control, the data that, the development that has occurred. And certainly I would be wanting to know more about that. My main objective was to link the blue economy, Sagarmala, and the trade. So the border control was not as central to it, but it's an important point I would be wanting to include as I further work on this. Thank you also for pointing out Ram Gopal Agarwala's paper on infrastructure. And I hope Dr. Day and I can communicate by email and share ideas and material. Thank you, Dr. John, for that you chaired that on the fisheries sector and the maritime. What you suggested as a center is something that is long overdue in the country, and I had not studied the report that you shared, but now I will. You have aroused my curiosity, and I would certainly be advocating what you have just said about the new center. Yes, thank you very much, and I appreciate the comments from both of you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Sir, we have a few questions now. Dr. Arjun, have you also received few questions? Because I have one or two questions in my chat box. Yeah. So one of the questions right now is, a large part of foreign trade through ports takes place from Mumbai. How do we develop and strengthen new ports in the country, especially in light of the recent history of failures of special economic zones?
Okay, thank you. Now, in Mumbai, there are two ports. There's a Mumbai port. I grew up next to Mumbai port, okay, behind CST. That is not a very big port now. JNPT is. So JNPT is in Mumbai. But as I said, the largest port today is Mundra by volume. And what we are doing is diversifying, developing, and we had not really paid too much emphasis on modernization and investment. So the infrastructure investment that is going on, we are going to see much greater diversification of the cargo. I remember many years ago in the 90s, I was an advisor to Singapore delegation and came with a minister to India from Singapore as their advisor. And we went to the Madras port. And the way that we saw Madras port functioning at the time, it was very clear that they needed to invest a lot in physically, in human resources, in organizationally, in the IT and other software, and so on. So now that that investment is taking place, we are going to see diversification. The other reason was that our trade volume was relatively small, even though it is 1,200 billion. It should be around 2 trillion over the next few years. And Mumbai, Maharashtra is the most important industrial state. It has the largest GSDP and so on. And a lot of activity took place. So a lot of things went through there. But I have seen and talked to many who before used to send to JNPT their cargo for trade or receive imports at JNPT are no longer doing so. They are going to the Gujarat ports and somewhere in the south, those who are located in the south. So Mumbai won't be, JNPT rather than Mumbai, won't be as dominant as it used to be for a variety of reasons.
Yeah, we have one more question by the
on the Q&A, yes.
Yeah. So, Dr. Kumar, you were saying something?
I was saying, sir, in the Q&A, there are 2-3 questions.
Yeah. So, one of the attendee, he has not declared his name, but he has written that, Professor Asar, thank you for such an engaging session. Would like to know your thoughts on the climate crisis as a consideration in the expansion of India's foreign trade. What are the prospects of making the expansion a suitable one? Alongside, does the component of safety also assume greater importance in light of the Gulf of Mexico fire and the recent IPCC report being labeled a code red for humanity?
One of the important lessons that study of economics and study of public policy teaches you, us rather, is the need for trade-offs. At different levels, at different times, we make different trade-offs. And we now have International Solar Organization. We are meeting Paris, the climate goals, and so on. And you are, of course, right that whatever we do, we need to take into account the sustainability, environmental sustainability. But environmental sustainability is not the only goal. And at a $2,000 per capita income, when we want to go to 10,000, your policy making thinking about trade-offs and risk are different than when you are Norway with 5 million people, lot of oil, and 65,000 per capita income. You can afford to have different trade-offs than we can. So let's be not romantic. Let's not take other people's agenda on our. The international community can say what they want to say, but we need to make our own policies for our own context, make the trade-offs that are needed, mindful that if there is a huge environmental crisis globally, we will be affected. But our contribution so far has been relatively small per capita. I didn't show you, but I have a slide that says from 1750 to today, which countries have contributed the most to the greenhouse gases. US and others, China, they have contributed a lot. So it's not that we shouldn't take it into account, but you have to balance and make choices, use technology, and we are making progress in that direction as well. Look at our renewable energy, how much we are doing progress in the renewable energy. As I said, Indian railways will be carbon neutral by the end of this decade. Could we ever thought that Indian railway will be carbon neutral? So yes, we are taking into account where we can, but we can't give up our goals. We need to grow per capita income. Growth is an imperative if we want to give our people good life.
If we can also take all the questions together, it will take some time. Yes, any questions, sir? Yes,
sorry, mine is a typical academic who answers the question in a long way.
We'll call it quite a few. Yes, Nalin. Yes.
We have 3 more questions. So the first one is, what is your view on India's seaweed industry? Then the second question is, can you please throw some more light on trade facilitation initiatives taken by India? In addition, if we want to go for quantitative research, will it be possible to measure progress of Sagarmala program? And the third question is, could you please elaborate the circumstances under which India decided not to join the RCEP?
Okay.
So these are the three questions.
One more question is there, sir.
In the chat box.
Yes.
That question was, just a
So
minute.
that has come just to me. How does sir see development in trade efficiency, competitiveness, and the logistics ease of doing business when compared to other East Asian countries in China? And so what are your views in the recent infrastructure push by our Indian government on Gati Shakti, national infrastructure, pipeline and others? There has been also a shift towards export-led development, especially from the regions and district level, especially during the Atmanirbhar package and all things during the last year. Sir, over to you.
These are very wide-ranging questions, and sometimes the answers are not so simple that can be said in yes, no, or a couple of sentences. I'll try to be as responsive as I can. Our seaweed industry is very infant, but we right now produce around 20,000 tons, I think, of seaweeds. We want to produce 1.1 million tons over the next 5 to 8 years. The cabinet has passed the program, budget has been allocated, and we will move towards greater contribution of seaweeds to the economy. It will also address our malnutrition problem. India's problem is no longer hunger, it's malnutrition. How do we fortify rice? How do we fortify food? And seaweed is an excellent source for protein and so on. The RCEP is a complex thing, but it's not in our interest to join RCEP. If you look at the countries, in all of these, there is no implementation integrity. If some country like China is not implementing the agreement in the spirit it is signed, who is going to have a dispute resolution with them? There is no dispute resolution mechanism. And we already have bilateral agreements like with ASEAN, with individual ASEAN countries. And now we are fast tracking trade agreements with 6 countries, including UAE, which is a large trading partner, UK, which is a new partner in terms of agreement, and others that we don't need to just join for the sake of joining. The marginal benefit is small because all the RCEP countries have got enough agreements with each other. The more agreements you have, the higher the transaction cost. And it is not in our national interest to join RCEP at this point in time unless our concerns are met. About the Gati and all the other infrastructure, see, we are going towards investment-led economic growth. We have been putting too much on consumption. And all the countries, if I digress, if we look at historically the countries that have grown, it's only about 40-year period in which they grew very rapidly. Then they sort of become normal countries. And in those 40-year period, the investment to GDP ratio is somewhere between 35 and 40%. Ours was 30 to 32%. And at some time it was 34. Now we are going to 35 40 range. And that range we need to continue so that investment growth is helping. Export, we have to do it at the margin, because the key part of it is that unless we are able to supply what the world needs, we are relevant to the world and secure what we need as imports, we can't be a major country. So the Atmanirbhar Bharat is often misunderstood, and I've written enough and given enough talks on that to show that it really will integrate India even more deeply. And so all of these initiatives are towards that. I gave you some surveys of the trade facilitation, and I read a very interesting thesis by a student of Professor Nalin Bharti on trade facilitation. India is making quite progress, but we still need to go get down and try. We are a large country. There are many trade facilitation points. I mentioned about the fact that for the states, most states do not have formal statutes that are coded. We have India law code, but not states, and we are working on that. So part of all that is a work in progress, but there is recognition. But with the trade facilitation is helpful only if we have capabilities to do trading and we have the connectivity. We have got all the things that we were talking about, the blue economy, new manufacturing, coastal zones, investments, and so on. So we need to look at it in connection with that. Have I missed out anything? I hope not.
Yeah, thank you for taking up all the questions. Professor A and Professor Asar and Dr. John. I think since now we are approaching dinner time, so if we can take 2 minutes way ahead in terms of our discussion, that what we can take home. If we can take up major points, summarizing in 2 minutes, it will be great for all the participants to just rethink about what can be done in future, and what type of new policies can be also formulated to support the ongoing reforms and the reforms which has to be done in future. So 2 minutes by Professor Asar and 2 minutes by Professor Dey.
Thank you, Professor Bharti. I think my slides were fairly comprehensive, but if I have to emphasize something, it is that the concept of blue economy is still not as much known as it should be. And it is our duty as researchers in the think tanks, as academics, and so on, to guide the next generation as well in the importance of how India can strategize blue economy along with Bharatmala and other complementary programs to create new growth nodes, new livelihood opportunities. Like seaweed will create huge livelihood opportunities and raise incomes, because it can be done as a farmers can do it as non-farming income as well, and so on. So I think that we have to be positive with the mindset that India should be and wants to be and is mentally and ready with capabilities to become a major country in the world. This is what I saw in my teaching in all these years, that when the Chinese students, for example, when they first came to me, they were each class had Chinese students, few of them, And in the 80s and early 90s, I didn't get a feeling they have internalized that they want to be a world power. But my late 90s and then 2000 onwards, it was clear to me they had internalized. And a lot of their actions were that. So we should never be thinking, oh, we are a third world country, we are low income, and country like India and all that. Don't use those words. We want to be a major country. What do we need to do to become one and keep all our thoughts, actions, and positivity rather than going to the negativity in that direction? That will be my larger message.
Yeah, thank you very much. Professor Day, may I also request you to...
Yeah, I have nothing to summarize. I was actually looking at Professor Asar's paper. So my conclusions would be that you're looking forward to read his paper out of this huge PowerPoint slides which he presented, the story which he has presented to us. So we look forward to read the full paper, and this will be very useful also to get young minds on the subject. Presently, as Professor Asar rightly said, there are not many researches going on in academics, in think tanks on the blue economy. He said that, I think with some frustration, that the blue economy concept, engaging the government and different agencies in the blue economy is not there somehow. So the paper which you will be writing, and this will actually encourage many young scholars to work on the subject in future. So look forward to read his the book or the monograph which he is planning to write out of this PowerPoints. Thank you very much. Also welcome him to come to India very often so that we can get an opportunity to interact with him and visit the country, encourage young scholars, and then this would be a great opportunity for us to get benefited out of his knowledge and great experience he has. Thank you very much. Namaskar.
It would be a pleasure.
Dr. John, would you like to have some points from your side also?
I think I've mentioned those points. I would emphasize on just two words: concerted action, because we talk of many things. We have identified all our issues. We know what should be done, but when we actually do it, we should do it with a kind of one-track mind, I would say that. And that is required for all the sectors that we have identified. So let us emphasize on that, and let us also keep a close watch on what is happening in the country as a follow-up to all these recommendations, because it is necessary to take them forward. I know that the concept and the blueprint has been developed and the government is actively pursuing it, but we should also, as academicians and researchers, we should also keep a close watch on what's happening and lend a helping hand wherever it is possible to make sure that the action is concerted. Thank you.
So an important point which was also highlighted by Professor Asar in his presentation is how the states like Uttar Pradesh is receiving hardly 1% of FDI, and how there is a inequality in terms of getting FDI in India. This is also one of the major point which brings a grassroots level change if we have to really think for making India as a destination for FDI. So we saw that India has received a huge FDI, and we are the only country during COVID-19 period to receive a bulk of FDI. But still, if we go inside the FDI recipient, there are many states, they are still without getting foreign direct investment. And we know that there is a direct link between the FDI and the production and the trade. And we cannot ignore that without getting FDI, largest populated states will really come up with new opportunities in terms of employment, especially COVID-19, post-COVID-19 unemployment is one of the major issues for the states. So bringing blue economy on the track, having more investment in terms of foreign direct investment or also the investment within the country, and linking those investment and the production network through international trade is the need of the hour. Post-COVID-19 situation is more challenging for all of us, especially for the country which has larger population, more in the informal sector employment. There is a high task for all of us to think on. So I understand Professor Asar's lecture that this type of discussion is going to bring India in a very dynamic world. While we are looking for the foreign investment, we are also bringing the new opportunities for the investors. At the same time, we have the potential to fulfill the gap of the production as well as the employment within and outside the country. And we cannot really make India Atmanirbhar without making other countries also Atmanirbhar. So I feel that if we have to really make the world happy and prosperous, India will be a partner, and becoming a partner when a country had different challenges inside. There is a need to invest in blue economy. There is a need to rethink about the ports infrastructure and trade facilitation. Improving those aspects are very, very important point, which has been highlighted by Professor Asar and supported by Professor Praveer Dey and Dr. John. So I would like to thank Dr. Arjun for giving us the opportunity for all of us to share a very recent and very motivating topic for all of us. Now I would like to invite Dr. Arjun if he has any point to make.
Thank you. No, it's quite a long session, but will be very happy, as Professor Dey was suggesting, for the manuscript out of the PowerPoint presentation really updated. So we'll be so happy to publish it as a working paper or a book, if you find time also to share that with us. And with that, I would now like to invite Anshula Mehta, who is Senior Assistant Director at IMPRI, to formally propose the vote of thanks. Anshula, go ahead.
So on behalf of the IMPRI Center for the Study of Finance and Economics, I would like to formally thank all of you for joining us for today's web policy talk. Thank you, Professor Mukul Ashar, for taking out the time to be with us in this inaugural session of our series, The State of Foreign Trade, #TalkingTrade, and delivering such an insightful and enriching presentation on the blue economy, port-based development, and expanding India's foreign trade. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Dr. Nalin Bharti, for joining us as the moderator for the session. We are also grateful to Professor Praveer Dey for joining us as a discussant and for sharing his perspectives, and also to Dr. George John for joining us on the panel and sharing his comments on the topic. Thank you, sir. And thank you, of course, to the audience who watched us here on Zoom or on Facebook Live and raised such pertinent questions. And thank you if you are watching later on YouTube or listening to us on our podcast. We hope that you continue to tune in to future episodes of Talking Trade. And with that, I wish you all a very good evening. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a nice evening. Thank you so much.